We like to remember Walter White as a tragic hero, a man crushed by life, humiliated by his job, ignored by the world, and betrayed by his own potential. A man who got cancer and was forced into impossible choices. A man who did everything for his family. That's the version of Walter White we are most comfortable with, because that version makes us feel safe. It tells us that if we were in his place, we might do the same thing. But Breaking Bad was never about justifying Walter White. It was about exposing him, slowly, patiently, and painfully. From the very first episode, Walter tells us who he is, not with words, but with resentment. He resents his students, he resents his boss, he resents his former partners, he resents the world for not recognizing him. This anger doesn't appear after the cancer diagnosis, it was always there. Cancer didn't create Heisenberg, it gave him permission, and that's the first uncomfortable truth we ignore. At the beginning, Walter's choices feel reactive. Cooking meth feels like survival, lying feels necessary, violence feels like self-defense, and every step is small enough that we don't notice how far he's gone. That's the genius of the show. It never asks us to accept evil all at once. It feeds it to us in reasonable doses, and each time we adjust, we adapt, we lower our moral standards just a little more. Then comes Jane, and everything changes. Jane isn't just a character, she's a test. She represents the moment where Walter has absolute power over life and death. No gun, no threat, no pressure, just a choice. He walks into the room and sees her choking. He freezes, and for a moment we freeze with him. We wait for him to act, to do the right thing, but he doesn't. He watches, he lets it happen, and in that moment, Walter crosses a line he can never uncross. This wasn't about panic, it wasn't about fear, it was about control. Jane was a problem, and Walter solved it, quietly, efficiently. And the most disturbing part isn't that Jane dies, it's that Walter cries while watching her, because it shows us that he still feels something, and yet he still lets her die. That combination is terrifying. It tells us that morality doesn't disappear all at once, it erodes while we're still capable of emotion. After Jane, Walter's lies grow stronger. "I did it for my family" becomes his favorite sentence. He repeats it so often that it stops sounding like a lie. It becomes his identity. And the more damage he causes, the more he needs that excuse to survive himself. But the truth is hiding in plain sight. Walter had chances to walk away. He had offers, he had money, he had exits. He didn't take them, because this was never just about providing. It was about proving something to the world and to himself. When Walter finally admits the truth to Skylar, it feels shocking but also inevitable. "I did it for me. I liked it. I was good at it." That line doesn't just redefine Walter, it redefines the entire show. Suddenly, every act of violence makes sense, not morally, but psychologically. Walter didn't want safety, he wanted significance. He wanted to feel powerful in a world that made him feel small. And once he tasted that power, nothing else was enough. And then there's Brock, a child, innocent, vulnerable. Walter poisons him not out of rage, not out of desperation, but out of strategy. He calculates the dosage, he plans the outcome, he anticipates Jesse's reaction. This isn't a man losing control. This is a man who has complete control and uses it anyway. At this point, Walter White isn't Breaking Bad anymore. He's broken, and he's willing to sacrifice anyone to protect his position. Jesse becomes the clearest victim of Walter's transformation. Jesse starts the show reckless and immature, but over time he develops a conscience, and that conscience becomes a liability to Walter. So Walter crushes it. He manipulates Jesse's guilt. He rewrites reality. He positions himself as the only source of guidance Jesse has left. This isn't partnership, it's emotional imprisonment. Walter doesn't just destroy Jesse's life, he destroys his sense of self. And the more Jesse suffers, the more Walter thrives, because suffering confirms Walter's superiority. It reminds him that he's in control, that he's the smart one, the necessary one. This dynamic is one of the darkest parts of the show, because it reveals Walter's need to dominate, not just to win. By the time Heisenberg fully emerges, Walter White is already gone. The hat, the stare, the way he speaks, this isn't a disguise, it's a revelation. Heisenberg isn't who Walter pretends to be, he's who Walter always wanted to be. Feared, respected, remembered. When Walter says, "Say my name," he isn't demanding recognition from criminals, he's demanding validation from the universe, proof that his life finally meant something. And here's the most disturbing part of all. Even after everything he's done, many of us still hesitate to hate him completely. Because Breaking Bad traps us inside Walter's perspective. We see his logic, his reasoning, his fear. And understanding someone is dangerous, because understanding feels like forgiveness. But it isn't. And the show never asks us to forgive Walter White. It asks us to watch what happens when pride replaces humility, when ego replaces love, and when intelligence replaces morality. Walter White isn't evil because he kills people. He's evil because he justifies it. He intellectualizes it. He reframes it until it sounds reasonable. And that's why he's one of the most unsettling characters ever written. Not because he's unrealistic, but because he isn't. Breaking Bad isn't a story about drugs or crime. It's a warning. It shows us how easy it is to become someone unrecognizable while still believing you're right. How slowly the line moves, how quietly the excuses grow, and how dangerous it is to believe that being good at something makes it acceptable. In the end, Walter White gets what he always wanted: power, recognition, legacy. But he loses everything else: his family, his soul, his humanity. And the tragedy isn't that he dies. The tragedy is that he lived long enough to become exactly who he wanted to be. And maybe that's why we hate Walter White, because he forces us to ask a question we don't want to answer. If we were given the same power, the same intelligence, the same resentment, how sure are we that we'd be any different?